Hi, welcome to another session. So, we are right now doing Module 3, Unit 5 of Film Studies. So, we have been looking at national cinema basically, different dimensions of national cinema, and trying to understand transnational cinema and contemporary trends in Indian cinema. So, I have not really looked into the history of Indian cinema per se. The reason being that there are a lot of text and videos about early Indian cinema, the history of Indian cinema. And I think it would be very superfluous to talk about the history right now. You can check and understand, you can read about it on any platform. So let's move on to Unit 5. I hope you have been reading the books, watching the movies, so that you have a better understanding of the concepts that we have been discussing. So let's take a look at the next concept. You're going to look at the OTT platforms and the concept of creative industries. So you are very familiar with OTT platforms, right? You can also call them SVOD platforms, which means subscription video on demand, or over the top, as OTT in its expanded form is. So, what is OTT platforms, or how do they impact on our understanding of cinema? How has these platforms changed our perceptions of film? Has it had an impact on film production or consumption? We are trying to understand that. So, OTT platforms, of course, have made some major shifts in the way in which we understand cinema. Some of the genres that became very popular, of course, are action, humor. If you look at OTT content, be it films or series, you would see there are so many of them. Like especially humor or action. A lot of crime thrillers that you see. The pandemic, the COVID pandemic, of course, helped in the growth of OTT phenomenally. And OTT platforms, one thing that has changed, as far as one major shift that has happened with the OTT platforms, is of course the way in which regional content has become very popular. I think I mentioned this earlier in one of the sessions about how Malayalam cinema is viewed by a lot of people across the globe, across India. If you talk to people anywhere in India who consume a lot of quality content on OTT, they will tell you about the Malayalam films that they have watched. They will tell you about, they will talk to you, they will gush about Tovino or Fahad. They will talk about our music. They will talk about the way in which we sort of talk about patriarchy, the quality of our content. They will talk about the narrative styles of Malayalam cinema. So this is something that has happened in recent times. Or OTT platforms will also, if you do a study on OTT platforms in India, you will also see how the Hallyu culture or the Korean culture, Korean pop culture, has emerged as a very significant cultural product in Kerala. I'm not saying India, I would say Kerala, because I hear a lot of young students, even from very rural, spaces, talking about the Hallyu culture, how it has impacted them, how there are fan clubs, and how they read fan fiction about the Korean pop culture. Recently, one of my friends was telling me about how Thailand has been exporting their fan culture. So these are trends that have sort of happened after the OTT platforms became very, very popular. Another interesting aspect is the way in which handheld devices are being used for cultural consumption. a lot of people watch content on their phones, on their mobile phones, which also resulted in a lot of vertical filmmaking. So we are not talking just about people who consume these culture. We are also talking about people who produce them. People are not just consuming, they are also producing in a lot of ways. So moving on to creative industries. Now, creative industries again is a very significant development in contemporary times. So what is creative industries? As I mentioned earlier already, it is something, it is a product of the new millennium. So creative industries is a combination of two interesting words. So it is about a very diverse and complex sector ranging from performing arts to computer games, or from graphic designing to advertising, where there is a combination of the creative space and the industry space. So it's about commodifying culture. It is about bringing the two dimensions together. So we understand, as of now, we understand that there is creativity is a commodity. We, with the social media spaces and everything, we know that creativity is a commodity. We are commoditizing it. The way in which the Kardashians have sort of sold their everyday lives for these media platforms. So we see a lot of influencers. We see micro influencers, macro influencers, nano influencers. So all of these people are commoditizing their everyday experiences. You must have seen a lot of reels of people eating food, folding clothes, doing anything and everything. So commoditizing your creativity and generating this kind of content, generating and commercializing creativity, knowledge, thoughts, ideas, information, everything. You can sell everything. So creative industries try to sort of understand, or is all about this kind of commercializing, commoditizing creativity. Now, in Latin America and in Latin American countries or in Caribbean countries, they also call it, critics call creative industries orange industries. Now, the reason being that orange is the color of creativity, orange is the color of knowledge. So you can also call it orange economy. So as I mentioned earlier, creativity is a commodity, and creative industries is all about monetizing this and sort of finding ways and means and platforms to sell your creativity, to buy that creativity, and to build an economy around it. So we have to also remember that this is quite exploitative in nature because it is a gig economy. So even as of now, you would know how if you're working in a creative space like media industries, if you're working in a space where you are producing films, you are part of the industry which produces films or web series, you're mostly someone who is offering your service as a freelancer. So if you are a freelancer, it is very hard to find a job per se. So you become part of the gig economy. You do not have a job at all times. You do not have any job security, but you offer your services as and when it is required. So you become a freelancer and you become part of a gig economy, which is a sort of a signature of neoliberal economies. So it does not give you any security. It does not give you an economical framework to sort of support you when you are not able to offer your work. You're sort of lost. So creative industries is also about gig economies. Now, as I mentioned already, it is about a cultural commodity production. So creative industries provides you the framework to have a cultural commodity production. So Films are also part of creative industries, as I mentioned already. So in these neoliberal times, in this neoliberal economy, filmmaking is also part of creative industries. So creative industries is also about new technological platforms, the OTT platforms, the platform industry, the different platforms that are offered. Now it's very fascinating to see filmmaking, evolving in these times, and the whole industry evolving in the times of creative industries. Now let me give you an example. We see a lot of films getting released these days, right? Have you noticed how these releases happen? Now, maybe before creative industry, before the age of creative industries, before the age of globalization, films released, and the process was much more simpler. Films were made, films got released, people watched films, and there were mostly, some events happening. Sometimes you would see a picture in a newspaper, or you will end up seeing posters, right? Before the film was released. You would see posters everywhere. Posters which had the name and, other details, pictures and everything. And the film was released. Now, how do you know about the release of a film in recent times? Now, even before the film is made, you start hearing about the film, right? Even when the music is released, the moment when the shooting begins, or you see short snippets, you see short videos of the film's shoot, maybe, or some interesting news about the film. You hear about it, you see it on social media platforms. And then you have the first poster, the pre-release, the first look poster that you see. So the first look poster comes, then you have trailer after trailer, pre-release trailers and everything. And then you have a song sometimes. The song comes out first. And sometimes the song becomes so, popular, as I think the film Pushpa had a song release which became so popular. And usually the popularity is judged or evaluated from the number of views online, and whether it has crossed all limits, all kinds of existing parameters. So it keeps the numbers increase every day for the first few weeks. And then you see a lot of people doing reels on the same song, on Instagram, on YouTube, on every other social media platform. So the film is yet to release. The film has not released yet. Now just imagine, this is what creative industry is all about. Creative industries is not just about that particular film getting released, but it is also about all the activities that happen around the release of that film. That is all part of the creative industries. The social media platforms, the people who make money out of it, the influencers who make money out of it, the reels that make people popular, celebrities. So now we see that the consumer is also the producer as far as social media is concerned. So we have a prosumer. So this is the person who consumes and produces at the same time creative content. Now, even before the release of the film, the new technological platforms are used to the maximum, are exploited to the maximum, so that people are talking about the film. People are interested, want to know what this film is all about. And as the film is released, again, the hype goes higher and higher. And after the film is released, in another maybe a couple of weeks, we see that the film is now going to be available on a SVOD platform. So again, another platform is used. So there's a lot of commercialization, a lot of selling that happens, a lot of commodification that happens over a period of time. Now, creative industries also talks about a lot of other things like censorship. These are all concerns, I think, that we should discuss. Censorship, surveillance that happens through all these mediums. Now, to talk about creative industries more in detail, let's try and understand how this industry, pans out. What are the ways in which this industry impacts the society? As I have already mentioned, some of the ideas, but this is also a space that works in multifarious ways. One is that it builds counterpublics. So it is possible that you can have certain conversations around certain things, certain ideological spaces. So it helps build these counterpublics. So creative industries also offers certain kind of space for people to express dissent or voice their resistance to certain things. So as I mentioned, it also becomes spaces for counterpublics, where when you have reviews of films or when you have people talking about certain films, expressing their opinions, so it becomes a space where voices of resistance becomes normalized. So it becomes part of the normal lives of the community. So people do find some space. So creative industries offer that. In a sense, it is reducing democratic spaces. I do agree. It is reducing democratic spaces because these are all spaces which are mostly surveyed, and there is a lot of censorship that happens. But at the same time, it also offers some space for resistance. Creative industries also gives you, space to celebrate diversity. Now, when I talk about celebrating diversity, I'm reminded of the way in which Clubhouse, as a audio app, um, gave a lot of space for people from subaltern communities, Dalit communities, and tribal communities, having the space to speak. So Clubhouse had, especially during the pandemic, had a lot of these groups, rooms where there were conversations, heated conversations around subalternity, around Dalit identity, around tribal literature, around tribal, voices. So this also offers the space for celebrating diversity. Now, counterpublics is definitely something very positive. Although all the things that I've been mentioning about creative industries earlier were not really, great points, in the sense that they were not helpful for the growth of a diverse community. It was more about homogenizing, it was more about an agenda setting, propaganda, and all of that. But here I'm telling you that it is also a space for diversity. It is also a space for expressing dissent. Now, there have been very interesting interventions because of these platforms. So especially when it comes to release of certain kinds of films, propaganda films, people do find these spaces as helpful in expressing their solidarity to the other, in expressing solidarity to the communities that have been othered, to actively intervene when such conversations happen. Now, when the Kerala story was released, for example, people from Kerala resisted the film and said that this is not our story. So there were a lot of hashtag campaigns to tell the world that this is not our story. So this was happening on social media spaces. It was happening on these multiple platforms. So such possibilities are there in these platforms. Now, it also helps in bringing subcultures to the mainstream. As I mentioned earlier, Dalit communities speaking on in clubhouse rooms, the way they were able to speak and bring themselves to the mainstream culture which gives them much more visibility. And I would also like to mention about the tribal poetry from Kerala, how they have been speaking very loudly, how they have been articulating their concerns, articulating about their literary interest and everything. So that has given them a space in contemporary mainstream culture. Now, there is also this shift from the textual to the audiovisual during the growth of creative industries. Although there has been a lot of commercialization, there has been a lot of consumer authentication as well. So creative industries gives a lot of space to the consumers to sort of express themselves and to be heard. So of course that gives a lot of liberatory trajectories as well. People get to speak up, people get to be heard, and I think women have used these platforms very effectively, the hashtag movements and everything. So there is a lot of possibility. Even though democratic spaces are getting reduced considerably, we see that creative industries does offer some kind of space for conversations and interventions. So creative industries also brings cinema into its fold, and therefore we need to have more conversations around the concept of creative industries in order to understand cinema better. We cannot do that in contemporary times without talking about creative industries, without talking about the SVOD platforms that have those, that usually takes those cinema films to the public. So I will be sharing films to watch again and text to read. Please keep doing that. Please do read and watch those movies to get a better understanding of creative industries. This is an interesting area if you want to do more research, because this is an evolving space, and there is always opportunity for students to study more about creative industries. So that's it.